Hello Year 10 and welcome to today's lesson. Before we start, please make sure you've downloaded the 3 Word documents attached to this assignment. These are Lara Trailer Comparison, Lara Gameplay and Lara Narrative. To start off with a knowledge retrieval task. This should take you about 8 to 9 minutes, and this is an explain AO1 question. Explain how those involved in the gaming industry make money. And this is a reflection on the work we've been doing in the last week about the gaming industry. Explain how those involved in the gaming industry make money. It's a 6-mark question. You're aiming for between 1 and 2 paragraphs. You're aiming for clear information demonstrating knowledge and understanding of the gaming industry. You're not being asked to mention a specific CSP, although you can obviously mention Kim Kardashian Hollywood or Lara Croft Go. That should take you about 6 or 7 minutes. So when you've completed that essay, please move on to the next slide. So today we are focusing on media language in Lara Croft Go. We're looking at a range of things, including narrative. We're looking at the connotations and elements of intertextuality. To start off with, you kind of need to understand who Lara Croft is. And Lara Croft is the lead character of a franchise of games called Tomb Raider. Lara Croft is the central character of all of those games. And Tomb Raider, the first Tomb Raider game was launched in 1996, and it is a very successful gaming franchise, and games continue to be released into the 21st century. And Lara Croft is a significant character in terms of what she says about female characters in the gaming industry. Because as we've discussed, the gaming industry has become more female oriented. But when Lara Croft turned up, it was still quite a male dominated industry in terms of the people making the games, but also in terms of the kind of characters that you could play in games. So she does have an important cultural impact. And Lara Croft is quite a polarizing character in that respect. In some respects, she is seen as a positive female role model because as a character, she's very strong, she's quite feisty, she obviously is very powerful, and if you play in the game, the aim is to make her succeed. She does a lot of action-oriented things such as shooting guns, and fighting monsters, and killing bad guys, and so on and so forth. So she has a kind of female action hero iconography, but she's also characterized by being a very sort of image-driven character, and a character where there is a lot of voyeuristic appeal in the way she's designed and the way she looks. And of course, she is a woman who's been designed by men. And as you can see from the images there, there are particular things that stand out about Lara, as we will discuss later. And some of the games themselves, the quality of the games has varied over time. It's not a franchise of games where every single game has been regarded as being of very high quality, and they did have a bit of a dip in the mid 2000s. I mean, it's a very successful franchise and it is still going. And I think that certainly one of the recent games, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, was the most recent game, and that did very well. So it is a franchise that has legs. And indeed, Lara Croft's character, she has gone beyond games. There are several Hollywood films, there are comic books, there are novels, and so she has gone beyond being just a gaming character. So Lara Croft, a significant character in terms of her success as a games character. The Tomb Raider series, a successful games franchise. Also important in terms of being one of the first significant gaming characters to have longevity who is also female. So please make sure you've noted down who Lara Croft is. Please make sure you've noted down that she belongs to the Tomb Raider franchise and her significance. There is a clip there where you can watch it. You don't have to. It's about 5-10 minutes, and it is a compilation of clips from the various Tomb Raider games. If you have never played Tomb Raider, if you don't know what Tomb Raider is, it just gives you an indication of how the character has evolved over time, or at least until 2018. So if you're not sure what Tomb Raider is or who Lara Croft is, strongly suggest that you watch that clip. Anyway, you want to move on to the next task after you've done that. Oh, just bear in mind, you won't be able to click through directly from this video. You'll need to use the link in the YouTube channel, sorry, on the assignment. As I mentioned, Tomb Raider has led to at least three films, and I thought it'd be useful just to put this in context for you to have a look at the trailers. So there's a 2001 film, which is the first one, called Lara Croft Tomb Raider, and then a 2018 film called Tomb Raider. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to compare the two representations of the characters. I want you to think about what is similar and what is different. And based on the representations, whether or not you'd agree that the more recent film, the 2018 film Tomb Raider, is a feminist film. So what you'll need to do is you need to complete the sheet, the comparison sheet, and then have a go at answering that question. It should take you about 15 minutes, I would say. And then when you've done that, you can move on. So we need to consider with Lara Croft Go the media language, and that means the storytelling elements, the narrative elements, and the way that Todorov's narrative structure might be applied. We also need to consider Lara Croft as a heroic character, whether or not you see her as a Tropian hero, and we also need to consider the conventions of the game. And the game fits into a couple of genres. Tomb Raider belongs to the action adventure role playing genre. Lara Croft Go is a turn based puzzle game. We need to understand the conventions of that. We also need to think about things such as Lara's appearance, the music, the kind of settings that you can apply to the game, its intertextuality, and its visual appeal. So we've got quite a lot to cover in terms of media language. So before we think any more about the gameplay, we need to understand what kind of game it is. So please make notes on this. So what kind of game is Lara Croft Go? Lara Croft Go is a puzzle-based role-playing game. And in the game, a player controls the character Lara Croft. She moves like a puzzle piece through the game world. And effectively, it is a problem-solving game. In each level, you get a problem or a series of problems to solve. It's basically how are you going to get from one end of the board to another, and you have to deal with various obstacles which are trying to prevent you from getting to the other end of the board. And players control Lara Croft as she moves through that world. The game is available on a range of platforms. You can get it on mobile, you can get it on console. And if you can play the game, now you have to pay for the game, I think. So if you can't afford to pay for it or you don't want to buy it, then obviously it's going to be difficult to play it. But there are lots of videos online that you can watch. But if you can play the game, that'd be great. So whether or not you're able to play the game, I'd watch at least 5 minutes of the video. And what I'd like you to do is while you're watching the video, I'd like you to fill in the information about the media language, for example, Lara's appearance, the music, the game settings, any evidence of intertextuality, the visual appeal. So we're going to use that worksheet to help you. There are a few prompts on there, but have a watch of the video, or if you do get the chance, have a play of the game. Right, we need to think a little bit about narrative devices in Lara Croft Go. And I want you to think about the various narrative techniques we looked at. Now, you should be fairly um, skillful at this by now, since we've been using these ideas on all the media products we've looked at virtually. So have a think about how characters might fit in to props character archetypes. Think about any evidence of binary opposites. Think about how we might apply Todorov's ideas about narrative. And again, there's another sheet to fill in, which should take about 10 minutes. And this is a worksheet on narrative. So use my prompts to help you and have a go at filling that in as much detail as you can. Right, so in terms of genre, The Tomb Raider series is described as an action-adventure role-playing game, and Lara Croft Go is a turn-based puzzle video game set in the Tomb Raider series. The game follows conventions of turn-based puzzle games, and Lara Croft is a puzzle piece that the game player moves through a virtual board whilst avoiding obstacles and manipulating the environment. And this was influenced by a previous game, Hitman Go, and that's based on another franchise from the same software house as Lara Croft Go. And the game includes the following genre conventions. So what I like to do is like to note these down. So firstly, the levels are composed of interconnected nodes and lines. And you'll notice in the game, the screen grabs, there is an obvious track the character follows. The player controls Lara Croft, and that is obviously the same as in the main gaming series, where the player controls Lara Croft. So that's a link to the main series. The player and the environment take turns, and that obviously is more to do with a board gaming convention that the video game follows. During the player's turn, you can move Lara one unit in a given direction. So your movements are dictated by the board. Again, that is linked to the puzzle the turn-based puzzle aspect. When Lara rests at a node, little dots on the gameplay board, the enemies and obstacles move. And obviously you have got to plan your move to make sure that you don't run into an enemy on their move. As the player progresses, the game's puzzles become more complex, and that's a convention both of puzzle games, but also of the main Tomb Raider games, and in fact most video games. The games become more challenging as the play continues, as the player gets more skillful, the game adapts its difficulty to match. Each enemy type has a specific movement pattern, and that's something that you learn as the game goes on. Now, again, that's similar to RPGs in that enemies will have particular strengths and weaknesses that you've got to learn during the game, and learning those strengths and weaknesses can help you improve at the game. Single-use items such as spears can be collected on levels and used to dispatch enemies from a distance. In the Tomb Raider series, one of the traits of that series was the range of weapons Lara could use, but they did tend to be firearms rather than things like spears. But it is a convention of RPGs that you have to have particular items to complete particular tasks. Other mechanics involve obstacles such as boulders, saw blades, and traps, and again, that is a convention of RPGs, and Tomb Raider is characterized, the Tomb Raider series is characterized by part of the gameplay involving Lara having to avoid traps. And the player can activate levers which shift walls and platforms to open paths and through the level. And again, that is taken directly from the Tomb Raider games. So many of these ideas, as you can see, can be found within the main series games. And the design, Lara's look, the actual design of the props, some of the music are directly taken from those games as well. So it's fair to say that Lara Croft Go is heavily intertextual with the main Tomb Raider game. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to note down the various conventions. I'd like to highlight those which link directly to the main game. Okay, now I appreciate that you may well be running out of time. So if you have time left, I'd like you to have a go at this essay. If you don't have time left, then don't worry about it, because it's just effectively a summary of the work we've just done. The question is, how far does Lara Croft Go demonstrate the typical narrative and genre features of a turn-based puzzle game? And that is a 6 marker, so it's about 10 minutes. If you've got time, have a go at that. If you don't worry about it. Should take you about 10 minutes. When you have completed that essay, please photograph all your work for the day. That should include the 3 worksheets. It should include your knowledge retrieval essay, and it should include your notes on genre. And if you've done it, this essay, please attach your work. Do make sure it's uploaded. Make sure that you've turned it in, and then when you've clicked the button to turn it in, that is it.